Right, so I'm in Ableton Live, and this is what we're going to generate today. Anyway, so this is a little music production session, and I'm going to be using my wonderful little program called SMFFTI. SMFFTI stands for Simple MIDI Files from Text Input, and it's a purely experimental program written for Windows only, and it's designed to help me create chord progressions easily. I did make a couple of videos about this a while back, but I've deleted those videos now because the program has moved on quite a bit and it's got a lot more features and it's changed a bit, and you know, it's a bit more of a sort of toolkit, if you like. Now what I've got here is a number of channels with different instruments on. I've got a ready-made drum beat here which sounds like this. Fairly bland. I've got a bass channel, I've got a Rhodes sample channel, I've got pianos and plucks and stuff, even funk guitar, super saw, strings, and I'm just going to try and fill these up. So it's a 4-bar loop we've got here. I'm working in this temporary folder, and the workflow is that you would sort of have your program, the executable. I mean, actually this is a bit nerdy, you know, so if you're, you know, you might just need to be reasonably familiar with basic Windows stuff. So I've got the program here and it's sitting in this temporary directory, and this is where I'm going to be developing all the clips. Right, if I run the program, just click on it. Here we go. Now this is a pseudo GUI, right? Originally you would just be able to enter commands at the command window prompt and it would execute those commands, but I've decided to add this kind of pseudo GUI, and what it's done is it's created a file called chords.txt and it's loaded that data into here. So what we've got here is a default chord progression of G minor, D minor, E flat, C minor, and this is all being echoed inside a text file, because it was originally designed to, you'd be able to define chord progressions in a text file and you'd edit the text file manually. So there we are, it's generated this chords.txt, okay, and we've got this. So at the bottom of the file we've got this chord progression, and this indicates where the chords start and end, and the chord progression itself underneath. I'll explain what those question marks mean later. Above that we've got a whole load of parameters for controlling the behaviour of how the MIDI file is created, stuff like that. Yeah, and it's all explained in a manual. So there's a fairly comprehensive user manual here which runs to like 70 pages, and this describes all the operations, right? So you know, you can try this out for yourself if you think it might be useful. So anyway, this is the text file. Now we don't really need to change this. We don't need to, you can monitor this, but you shouldn't change this while it's loaded inside the program. Any changes we make to the file inside the program will be immediately reflected in this file. So you shouldn't make changes to this file while the program is running, but we don't need to really refer to that anymore. Now the other aspect of the workflow, this is fairly sort of a key part of the workflow, is that we first of all develop a chord progression, and then once we're finally happy with it, we use that chord progression kind of in a locked mode, and then we develop derivative rhythms and melodies derived from it, and we use those to populate some of these other channels. So first of all, we've got to develop a chord progression. Now you can just manually, there's all sorts of commands for manually entering your own chord progression here, but we're just going to go with automatic, randomly generated stuff as far as we can, right? So there's a command called auto chords, AC, and we have to specify a key. We're going to say G minor. Boom. Right, so we've got all these chords. I have no idea, I mean they're somewhat fragmented, and what it's done is it's generated a file by default, chords.mid. I can specify a specific name if I want to, but chords.mid, and what that's, if we load that say into the Rhodes thingy here, because that's good for auditioning chords, it sounds like this. Now, straight out of the box, that hasn't done a bad job. So we've got here, we've got E flat, B flat, G minor. Yeah, I mean there's nothing special in there. It hasn't given us any sort of enhanced chords. It's worth noting, for instance, that it sticks everything in by default in register C3, and there's a sort of transpose threshold, which means that some of these chords might be transposed, but the whole idea of this is to keep it all in its in the same general register. Note also that by default the notes of the chords start and end in different places, just what I might call humanization. It's just an option, and they've also got different velocities. Now if you wanted to do all this manually, you'd have to come in here and mess about with all these. Right, so I wanted something that would try and do some of this automatically. That's our first attempt, but I'm going to try it again. I'm just going to, I mean, right, okay, look, let's, that's interesting. Look, we've got a lot more variation there. Let's see what that does. Let's try it again. What does this give us? Wow. I'm going to move some of these around. Right, so seeing as I have changed those manually, what I'm going to do is I'm now going to have to export that back to our program. So what I can do is if I export the clip, Control-Shift-E, and I just save it to my temporary folder, and I call it temp. We've now got a temp mid.mid, right? So there's a command where I can say MIDI to SMFFTI, and I say temp.mid, and what it will do is it will read that file and convert it back to our text format. And there you are. You see it's changed the chords here. There's another thing, right? So we've got 6 chords. What if we want to keep the same chords but move the starting positions and what have you, just randomly? Well, there's a if I hit F3 here, it shows a parameter page. These are all the parameters that control the behavior of the program, and one of the things we've got here is parameter 12, random chord position offset RCPO, chance percentage, and I'm going to change that to 50%. And what that means is there's a 50% chance of it shifting the start of each chord around, right? And the maximum that it can move them is dictated by parameter 13, random chord position offset maximum number of 8s. So it can potentially shift the start position of each chord by a quarter note. So if I go back to hit F3 again, go back to our chord structure, chord progression, if I now just say MIDI to generate the MIDI file, it keeps the same chords, but you can see it moves the start of the chords around a bit. Okay, so interesting. So you know, you just get a different flavour. Let's try this, see what it does. Right, okay, so tell you what, let's just keep trying it. In fact, let's try something else here. Is this chord structure a bit boring? We've got G minor. What if we change this G minor here? Right, so maybe I want to change this chord here to something else, but I don't know what. Right, so what I do is I stick a question mark before it. So if I say chord number 4 and I change it to like that, the question mark means it's a candidate for what I call random chord replacement. On the parameter page there is parameter 15, random chord replacement enabled. If I set that to 1 to switch it on, and the random chord replacement key is G minor, so in other words the substitute chord will be taken from the key of G minor. Parameter 17 means that if we set this to a value, if I set it to 50%, it means that there's a 50% chance that it might select a chord from the parallel key of G minor, i.e. G major, right, which will could give us an interesting chord change. So back to the thing. Now if I say MIDI again, we'll see what chord it chooses. Oh, can I undo that? I can undo it. Right, so I want to switch off random chord position offset. So let's turn that back to P12 0. Go back to here, you say MIDI, and it's changed it to an E flat. Well, that's a bit boring. C minor, change it again, C minor 7. Oh, look, half diminished. Right, and by the way, each time you run that, although you can't see it in the program, it actually reflects it in the text file. It keeps a history of the chord progressions. So the one at the bottom is the oldest, and then we move up here. You know, if you wanted to reinstate any of these, you come out of the program and you manually edit the text here to get back to whichever chord progression you wanted. So worth knowing. Okay, right, so what does that give us with a half diminished? Sounds awful. G minor 7 might work. Right, I'm going to leave it there. I'm just going to leave it like that. Not fantastic, but it will do. If I say chord 5 and I just fix it at G minor 7, and belt and braces will turn off parameter 15, so the chords won't change anymore. We have got our chord structure, boring though it is. Now that we're happy with the chord progression, we need to lock it, because unless it's locked, we're not able to perform certain other operations. And this is to protect, to prevent accidentally corrupting the main command file. We don't want to mess up chords.txt with some of these operations, so we need to lock it. It's a kind of safety mechanism. It flags it as locked, and that means we can now do some other things. And the first thing we're going to do is AR, auto rhythm. By default it outputs a file called ar.mid, and what I'm going to do is load this onto a piano. Right, and all this is doing is taken the same chord progression, but it's fragmented it, so you get a kind of a rhythm to it. If you're not happy with it, run it again. Now these are, full chords, which might be inversions. I mean, honestly, piano players amongst you would be horrified by this, because I don't know how much it bears any reality to genuine piano playing. But it's fun. Okay, we've got 4 chords here. Now there is another command. Instead of generating a straight, the chords, we say MIDI R5, which means root and the 5th, and we get a file called r5.mid. There it is. Now if I load that, basically we've just got the straight chords, but just the root and the 5th, so that's a bit more boring. So how do we inject a rhythm into this? Well, it's interesting. If I come back to here and I say AR again, now AR, as a byproduct of AR, we get a file called ar.txt, and we're able to load that into our program by using the command, by saying command file ar.txt, and it loads ar.txt, and it's got the complicated rhythm in it, same chords, so we can leverage this. So what I need to do is I need to do our MIDI R5 on this instead. MIDI R5, and this time R5 should contain a rhythm. Yeah. So this is your left hand, right? Kind of. I mean, I don't know. We can transpose some of these. All weird and wacky, right? Okay, so now let's just go back to here and we'll reload chords again. Right, auto melody. That gives us a file called am.mid, and I'll load that on one of the other piano chords, piano channels, and this is, see, this one is pan left, this one is pan right. So it's kind of picked out a pseudo melody from the underlying chords. If I do that again, and this time we'll bung it on a third piano channel, also pan right. So this is your right hand. Too much? You get the point. Right, we need a bass line. There's a number of ways we can create bass lines. There is a command called auto rhythm bassline, ARB, and we'll call the file bass1.mid. Bass1.mid can go on our thing here. I wonder if that's a bit too... What we'll do is we'll just turn off the piano for a minute. Possibly some of these are a bit too low. You know, the idea of this is it's supposed to give you a few clips. The clips that it generates, it's supposed to give you just something to work with. Right, anyway, you can see that what this command ARB has given us is just using the root notes of the chords set to a rhythm pattern. We also have auto melody bassline. We'll call this bass2.mid. This has given us a sort of a more melodic, because this is picking out notes from the chords. Let's get a different type of bass. We are going to generate a kind of bouncing bass. So what we need to do is take a copy of this file, chords.txt. So what we do is you say copy, and what it's going to do is copy the contents of chords.txt to bass.txt. But we have to load it. So we say command file bass.txt, and before we can do anything else we need to unlock this file, and now we go to our parameters page. There's a number of parameters we need to set. Parameter 4 we set to 1, which means it's going to use C1 as the sort of register. Parameter 7 we'll set to RO. Root and fifth only is going to be root only. Root and fifth only, we only want the root note. Parameter 28 turns the arpeggiator on. Parameter 30, the arpeggiator gate percent 100 and parameter 31 we set to 1. We're going to allow one step up, and these arpeggiator parameters echo some of the settings you've got in the Ableton Live arpeggiator device, kind of standard settings really. Parameter 14 we're going to set to 0. What this does is it basically makes sure that there won't be any gaps in the chords, and it's a bit like holding the arpeggiator. There won't be any silences. Autofill is a separate feature, by the way. So having done all those parameters, we now say MIDI, and we're going to send it to bass3.mid. I hope I've done that right. By the way, those commands that I entered, they can all be put in a script. Just using a text editor, you can enter a number of lines, save it in a text file, and then if you want to run the script, you say @, and then you would type in the name of your script, fred.txt, and it would execute those commands. So yeah, that's a way of not having to enter all these commands completely separately each time. It's all detailed in the manual. And of course what we also need to do at this point before we carry on is reload chords.txt. Right, percussion loops. I've got up here 2 percussion sets. I'm using battery 4 here, Native Instruments, and I've just populated it with a bunch of random drum sounds. 16 of them. I've got a similar thing on the next channel. I'm actually using a Korg M1. The Korg M1 VST, which cost me 35 bucks, I don't know, 10 years ago, has got millions of these things, and in the drums hit we've got all these different drum kits, and the one I'm using is called Percussion. It might be this one. Anyway, we've got all these sounds. So that's, I don't know, that's several dozen, right? So now if I come back to the program, there's a command called percussion pattern, and I have to specify the number of notes, the range of notes. We're going to choose 16, and with the root note is C1, right? And by default we get pp.mid. So let's stick that on here. All this does is it produces a 1-bar loop. Sometimes you get a triple. Let's run it again. Let's try it on the other channel. We've got more notes to choose from here, so we will go with, I don't know, let's say 36. I like that. Let's get some more sounds filled in, shall we? I've got a pluck here which uses silent 1, so I am going to do auto melody, and we'll stick that on this channel. what happens if I put, no, let's do it again. We'll do it again. And this time we will stick it on another M1 channel here, which is Spectrum Bell. We've got a bell sound. Oh, bit ethnic, right? Right, how about some funk guitar? Well, this is pseudo funk guitar because it simply uses my strange device, which is based on Ableton Live's Tension, and I'm using one of their default setups, Jazz 1 basic guitar, and I've got a load of effects which sounds nothing like funk guitar, but it's another sound. Right, there's a command called random funk guitar groove, and that produces rfgg.mid. Let's put it on here, see what it sounds like. Don't like it? We'll run it again then. Yes, I know it's not funk, and this chord progression does not lend itself to funk guitar anyway, but never mind. Look, how about an arpeggiator? How about a straight arpeggiator? Once again, I'm going to copy the contents of chords.txt to a file called arp.txt. We'll load arp.txt, which is a copy of chords.txt. We'll unlock it. We will do a similar thing to what we did earlier. We'll turn the arpeggiator on. We're going to set the arp time, parameter 29 to 16ths. Once again, we'll set autofill, parameter 14 to 0 to make sure we don't have any gaps. And we're saying MIDI. We'll send it to arp1.mid. This should give us there's about 13 different arpeggiators, I think, similar to what the Ableton Live arpeggiator device has. We've chosen number 1, which I think is a straight up arpeggiator. So if we stick that on our Super Saw, yeah, right, so I'm going to try arpeggiator number 9, P28 9. What I could do is put that on here. How about on here? Right, I'm going to do another auto rhythm. Oh, right, we need to reload chords.txt. AR. We'll stick that in a Super Saw. What a cacophony! We'll have another auto melody, IM. We'll stick that on channel 16. Blimey, what a mess. Let's switch them all on, see what a disaster it sounds like. Right, at this point there's another feature that I just want to mention, although I'm not going to go into it in too much detail. Right, so I've got this channel here called GCC, and what that stands for is Gate Control Channel. And I've got another video on YouTube which explains this, but I'm going to go through it again because I find it useful. So Gate Control Channel is a mechanism where we can turn the audio on and off for each of these channels. And the way it works is, if we look at what's on this channel, we've got instrument rack, and we're showing the keys here. Well, if I maybe make that a bit bigger, look, feel. So we can see here that we've got the different channels represented here, and they can be switched on and off by pressing the appropriate key. So if we press C2, it switches back to that percussion channel on, or for instance this Rhodes here will sound whenever we've got D#2 pressed, right? And each of these channels has a noise, generates a noise sound, which is inhibited because, let's just go back to our normal size. It's inhibited because this channel is sends only, so it won't produce the noise. But if we have on these channels a gate control and we enable it, it's getting side chaining from the appropriate channel, right? So there's all these different channels that come from the gate control channel, gate control rack, and yeah, so all of these are set up. Now I'm just going to turn all of these on because at the moment they're all turned off. Feeding into this gate control channel, we've got MIDI channels, right, which are empty, but this one goes into GCC. So what I can do is I can fill this channel with some MIDI clips. We can populate these. So let's say, what's the Rhodes channel? We said it's D#2, didn't we? This one. So for instance, apart from the drums, the drums will always play because that's not controlled by this. But if I see, none of the instruments are playing, you see, because we've only got this note enabled. And what I can do is I can just switch this. You get the idea? So all I need to do is set up rhythm patterns across these notes here to get the different sounds to play. So we've got this MIDI channel feeding into the gate control channel, which is being used to side chain into all the other channels. So on this MIDI clip, right, I've got this pattern. Select all the notes. We are switching on and off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, so all of our instrument channels, right? So let's disable them by pressing 0, and all we've got is the drum track, right? So now let's enable the percussion. That's one of the percussion tracks. Let's enable this one as well. Another. D2 is the bass. Right, this is the Rhodes. Up here we've got strings. Super saw. Piano. Maybe we should move. Another piano track here. We've got another piano track here. Should we have that as well? Right, these are, what is this one? Oh, right, this one's the funk guitar. Pseudo funk guitar. Should be on the second. Oh, it should be there, shouldn't it? Right, this is the pluck. And this is the bell type thing, spectrum bell. If you want to try this program out, you can download it free of charge from my little website. As I say, it's Windows only. Now, one little snag that might put you off is that Windows will throw up a warning screen telling you that it's an unrecognised app and it discourages you from running it. It's just Microsoft playing safe, I suppose. Now, this is because the program is not digitally signed. It would cost me hundreds of pounds to do that. So I ain't going to do that at this stage. All I could say is you can trust me. So if that doesn't put you off, then all you need to do is click on the More Info button and it reveals a Run Anyway button, which you then click, and after you run it the first time you won't get that warning again. Right, thanks for watching, bye for now.